With all of the long-standing chaos of French politics, some of the Republic citizens are turning towards a more historic alternative. A rising number of French men and women are considering royalism. According to one study, 17% of citizens support replacing the president with a monarch. This might sound surprising at first. The French have a famous history of anti-monarchism, executing their own king in 1793. But this is also the country that restored the monarchy after the Napoleonic Wars. And before that, the French monarchical tradition stretched back to over 1,000 years. But ever since the Revolution, and up until today, certain factions in France have tried to bring back the royals of the Ancien Regime. To understand how we got here, we have to know a bit of French history. The last king of France before the Revolution was Louis XVI, the one that lost his head. Louis was a member of the House of Bourbon, the dynasty that had ruled France for centuries, and still rules Spain today. Then, Napoleon came to power as the first emperor of France, but when he was defeated in 1815, the monarchy was restored under Louis XVI's brother, Louis XVIII, who was then succeeded by their youngest brother, Charles X. But when Charles began to act more and more authoritarian, the French people revolted in what became known as the July Revolution of 1830. Eventually, Charles abdicated, and his cousin, Louis Philippe, became the new king of France. But here's the thing. Louis Philippe was a member of the House of Orleans. He was the first and only French monarch to be from this house. Louis Philippe was popular at first, but, like his cousin, he grew more authoritarian, and in 1848, he also had to abdicate, making him the last ever King of France. This then led to the Second Empire under Napoleon III, which led to the Third Republic, which led to World War II, which then led to modern France under the Fifth Republic. And still today, we see a fair amount of French people that want to return to monarchy. These people are called Royalists. But there's still a dispute about who exactly that monarch should be. There are two main types of French Royalists, Legitimists and Orleanists. Legitimists believe that the rightful future king of France should be a member of the Bourbon dynasty, descending from Charles X. Orleanists believe that the rightful monarch should descend from Louis Philippe and the House of Orleans. For Orleanists, that descendant is the 60-year-old Jean d'Orléans, the Count of Paris. Jean has been the current head of the House of Orleans since 2019, but before that, he worked as a financial consultant for some of France's top firms. He has occasionally given his opinion on politics, speaking out against same-sex marriage and abortion, and in favor of the Gilets jaunes protests. He has also, predictably, spoken favorably about the monarchy.
Vous pensez que s'il y avait un monarque à la tête de l'État...
Oui, je pense, parce que lui, il recherche pas, comment dire, comme le pouvoir lui est donné, il n'a pas besoin de rechercher le pouvoir.
Legitimists, on the other hand, rally around Louis-Alphonse de Bourbon, a direct descendant of the Sun King, Louis XIV. Interestingly though, Louis-Alphonse was born in Spain and is a Spanish citizen. This is because Louis XIV's grandson, Philip, became the King of Spain. Louis-Alphonse traces his royal lineage through the Spanish branch of the Bourbons. He's also a cousin of the current King of Spain, King Felipe VI, and also the great-grandson of the Spanish dictator Francisco Franco on his mother's side. Louis-Alphonse himself is quite conservative and has also expressed support for monarchism.
Bon, ma famille a servi la France depuis des siècles, et si la France le demande, je serai à son service. La condition indispensable, c'est que la France veuille le retour de la royauté.
There's also a third group of royalists called Bonapartists who support descendants of Napoleon. In their eyes, the rightful king of France would be the investment banker Jean-Christophe Bonaparte, a descendant of Napoleon's younger brother Jerome. This faction is very small, however, and Jean-Christophe likes to stay out of politics, so Bonapartists aren't typically included in these discussions. Most royalists today are Orleanists and have founded many organizations to push for their agenda. The most famous of these is Action Française. Action Française was founded in 1899 by the right-wing politician Charles Maurras. They advocate for a Catholic monarch with complete control of the government, rather than a UK-style system where parliamentary democracy exists alongside a royal head of state. During the 20th century, Action Française reached a peak membership of 60,000 people. Today, that number is around 3,000. Legitimists have their groups too, however, like Lise Royale and Cercle d'Action Légitimiste. Generally, most royalists are fairly right-wing, which makes sense since they're clearly skeptical of democracy. In their eyes, republicanism causes divisions within society and leads to a nation run by the whim of the mob instead of by experts.
On se classe ni à droite ni à gauche, mais pour une monarchie, au-dessus des partis, parce qu'on est contre les partis, même des partis qui peuvent avoir des tendances proches de nous.
Also, many royalists are fiercely hostile towards immigration and the European Union, arguing that it is important to protect French national identity. Overall, monarchists are a relatively marginal part of French politics, holding no real power. But if they are marginal, then they're also surprisingly enduring. Action Française, for example, has survived 2 world wars and outlived 2 French republics. Emmanuel Macron once famously said, "There is, in the democratic process, an absence. In French politics, the absent one is the figure of the king, whom I fundamentally think the French people didn't want to die." This might be why support for the monarchy has continued to survive in France for so long. Macron has tried to replace the kingly absence with himself, but if opinion polls are to be believed, he may not have been as successful as he wants. It's unclear if the French will ever be able to satisfy this desire with a president, or if the current chaos and divisiveness in French politics is driving more and more people towards royalism. Either way, if history is any lesson, the royalist presence in France's political landscape, small as it may be, is here to stay for a long while to come.